to materials and methods specific for. So, for those of you who have gained access via your student login to Learn, but do not yet have access to this page, what you'll be required to do is within here search courses, type in CWP BDM 4001, I'll just grab it from here, push it in. Once you've typed it in, go search, and you'll come up with this. You can double click and you'll be prompted to enter a key. That key for this subject, as per the email which was sent out, is 13776. Once you've entered that, you'll be able to enter this page on Learn, which is the central repository for all the information relating to this course. The important thing to note is the absolute final due date to submit everything this semester is Monday the 3rd of December 2018. So we won't accept any submissions of any work after this date. The reason for that is that we have to get grades in, and it won't be possible to be getting working out work and getting grades in after that date. So you'll see everything that's laid out in this subject here under these tiles before you start course information. Let's get started. And then the subject is split into 3 particular areas, each pertaining to a particular project. So we've got class 1 single residential, and 2-story residential, and then multi-story building. You'll also see that under this tab here is recordings for semester 2 2018, and those recordings will be updated weekly via YouTube, but within here is a link to the YouTube playlist. Will be. So once the videos are up into that playlist. So if we have a look in before you start, for anybody requiring an extension, please be aware that you must put in an application for extension. So this form is found here. Following on, course information. So under this, with this PDF here, we have our unit of competency that outlines all of the fundamental requirements for assessment in accordance to this unit. So basically it sets out the minimum requirements for us to be able to say, yes, this student is able to pass, this subject is deemed competent. So I won't go through that note by note, but if you want to gain greater insight into how this subject is assessed and what is required of you, you can go through this unit of competency. Of course, if you have any questions about it, please let me know. This being a research subject is, it is very much about research, and because of that, referencing is an important aspect of that. So next here is our referencing PowerPoint. We open that one up. Go through that very quickly once it opens. So, simple guide to referencing in your TAFE assignments. So when you submit your assignment in Learn, you tick a box with which you acknowledge the work is your own unless otherwise stated. This otherwise stated is called referencing, and that is important to identify the work as being your own, or declaring passages which are not your own. So referencing, also called citing someone else's work, is important for 4 main reasons. One, it shows how much reading you did and that you didn't just use a single source to form the conclusions. It gives credit to the person who did the original research, and makes sure you don't get accused of trying to pass off someone else's work as your own, otherwise known as plagiarism, and lets the reader check if you are misquoting the source or taking on what they said out of context. And finally, lets the reader find out more information on the topic. So we require referencing. So basic principles of referencing. The basic rule of referencing is that you should give enough information for the person to find the original source and verify your use of it. There are standard ways of writing, including the Harvard system, known as parenthetical referencing, and the MLA system. Regardless of the system you are asked to use, there are certain pieces of information you need to provide. These include the author, title, edition, page numbers, and date of publication. So these are the basics. For websites, it gets a little bit more complex because websites are updated on a regular basis, and materials that are located on websites change frequently. For this, let the reader know the date you access the page. So put the date in there with the URL. Keep a copy of the article on that date. Either save the page to your hard drive. Bookmarking is not enough. What we're required to do within this subject, and I'll take you through that a little bit later on, is what's called the OneNote exercise, whereby we use the application OneNote to compile research. And this is also an easy way for you to keep track of websites, etc., and get that information organised for your referencing as well. So I suggest you combine those two activities. So for referencing in your tape essay assignments in this course, use a bibliography at the end of your assignments. You are not required to highlight text within the document, just follow the previous guidelines and the link. So we're keeping information on our URLs, keep basic information, the author, title, edition, page numbers, and date of publication for printed sources, and showing that as a bibliography at the end of our assignments. So that's referencing. Also on here we have our 2018 program. So that's our program for semester 2 with the dates and a rough outline of what is going to be covered in each session. So you'll notice here I referred to the OneNote task, so we'll explain the OneNote task today, and then get you started on task 1, the residential dwelling. Also, with that, with the external students, we don't need to cover the workplace health and safety in regards to exits and toilets and so on for this building here, but we can touch a little bit on why study materials and methods, and then also we'll go into covering some consultants and authorities as well, covering our first topic there, in which we can see the essay map viewer as well, which is an amazing resource for you. Also, within here, there's a YouTube link to previous videos from last year, but with our trial at the base of here, we'll be getting the new videos in each week as they occur. So, following on to let's get started. What we'll be covering in our projects are a Class 1 building, a residential transportable dwelling. For our second project, Class 2 building, a 2-storey commercial development that includes sole occupancy units, block 4 units, and Class 5 and 6 building, a 3-storey commercial office showroom. Also included here is, I guess, some fantastic motivation as to why the specification of various different materials and methods is highly important. So this relates to Grenfell Tower disaster, how the fire spread so quickly. Also, if you are interested in this particular aspect, I also suggest there's a Four Corners documentary on combustible cladding. So I think the documentary is called Combustible. It can be found on the ABC iView website as well. We may put a link to that within our learn page at a later date. But basically, without going through this with us in the class here now, it highlights the importance of the materials and the health and safety aspects and the litigation which can follow from the inappropriate specification of materials. And then we have here, and still don't care. How about your legal obligations? So this here, Safe Work FSA sets out the legal obligations for reckless conduct that exposes a person to risk of death or serious injury or illness in relation to the specification and implementation of dangerous products. Also, what you will become very familiar with, if not very familiar with throughout this course, is the National Construction Code. So we have a free download for the National Construction Code. Well, you can download that free. Anybody in the public can download that for free. You just have to create a login. So we click on that resource, open that. I'm actually already logged in on that. I see my name there. So all I need to do is go across. Well, actually this. Yeah. So we've got the NCC. When you log in, it will most likely say NCC Suite under here, and we can access the various different volumes of the National Construction Code. So starting out, we're interested with Volume 2, which are residential dwellings and other non-habitable structures, and then following on from that will be referring to for our subsequent projects, referring to NCC Volume 1, that's for Class 2 to 9 dwellings. Shrink that down. Also, information here on private certification. What is building certification? And this is a fact sheet for you to read through at your own leisure in regards to the role of private certifiers and how they fit in. Some information on passive design. So in regards to adequate design of buildings for energy efficiency, and how we can use the sun and the path of the sun to heat buildings and provide shading. So, excuse me. Now, along with our three major tasks, our Class 1 building, our Class 2 and our Class 5 and 6 building, we also need to do complete the OneNote task, which is a new task for within Certificate 4. All of you being students at the TAFE with your student login will have access to OneNote. So once you go to log in to your email, once you've accessed Office 365, you'll have here a tab for using OneNote. So we can click on that, go to that, and we'll let that open, give that a bit of time to open up. So on here you also have a video just giving a short explanation of what OneNote is, and we'll see if that's opened up now. So here we go. The way OneNote works is it's a place whereby we can compile various different resources, just drag and drop things from the internet, type in any information we want. So, for example, I drag and dropped a PDF of a title here, so specific title there with attached visit plan, etc. For that, so we can drag and drop files. We can put some pictures in. We can draw on those pictures. So go in and do our drawing, etc. Muck around with all that. We can insert files, insert pictures, etc. onto our OneNote, and of course we can put in hyperlinks to to videos or other online resources. Close that one down. Back to our OneNote. With that, we can add new sections. So I can add another section if I want. Let's go materials and methods. Cert 4. Add another section, and then within that materials and methods Cert 4, I can add a whole bunch of pages, different pages. So we can call this one, let's have this one. Where are we? Actually, I'll delete those and name them as I create them. So name that one. Footings. Name this one wall framing. And we can name this one roof framing, for example. And then we can, import resources, relating to those particular aspects. And that can be materials and methods, task 1, materials and methods, task 2, etc. So we can. So what you are required to do is set up this OneNote as a research tool and compile all of your research for task 1. And within week 4, you'll be required to submit your OneNote or share that with myself, the lecturer, to see that you've gone through that process of creating a OneNote and compiling these resources for your research. Going on further, in regards to that research, what will guide your research, obviously, is research in general, but also this task-oriented research. So we have task 1, the residential dwelling. So if we open that one up, we have our guide for task 1, the residential dwelling. Please note that this is actually a very large task, so duration 3 hours a week by 5 weeks to complete it. To be completed on the 21st of July 2018. Under each, for each building, we are to provide 3 structural options, 3 cladding options, and at least 2 service options for a residential dwelling. The proposed dwelling is on the learn site, so the plans for that dwelling are on the learn site. The current design is of a transportable timber framed building with timber cladding. The client would like to reconsider the design as a permanent structure. Include, where pertinent, manufacturing details for installation of your chosen options. So you must include a reference list of all the websites, manufacturers' guides, and other sources of information at the end of the project using the referencing guide supplied. Please keep track of where you've sourced your information from to aid in filing your research. You'll be using OneNote. So we are to look at this residential dwelling, reinvent this dwelling as a permanent structure, and provide for that 3 structural options, 3 cladding options, and at least 2 service options. However, those structural options are broken down into 3 sections themselves. So research and evaluate 3 structural systems for the roof, 3 structural systems for the walls, and 3 structural systems for the floors. For each of of those systems, consider the following. So the aesthetic properties, maintenance requirements, fire resistance properties, coatings required, fixings required, compatibility, interaction with other elements, health and safety issues, durability and compliance requirements. Then, once we've done the structural systems, 3 structural systems for each roof, walls, and floor, research and evaluate 3 different wall cladding systems. So that could be fibre cement sheet, aerated concrete, tin board products, brick or masonry, or any other wall cladding system you consider appropriate for that dwelling. Oh, just had that disappear, don't know why. Bring that up again. Scoot down. Excuse me. So our cladding systems. So research and evaluate 3 different wall cladding systems. Also research and evaluate 3 different roof cladding systems. And then for each wall and roof cladding system, consider the following: the advantages and disadvantages, limitations, environmental impacts, thermal properties, compliance requirements, installation costs, manufacturer's installation details where available. Then, following on from this, we need to consider 2 services. These will be hot water services using the information below, and firefighting needs and equipment as detailed below. So first up, for the hot water, you have this link to SA Hot Water. Compare the advantages and disadvantages of different hot water services. Make a recommendation to your client based on your research. Research different types of hot water systems through this link to understand the difference between gas and electrical. So we need to consider two services for the, or consider different services for the hot water service, and give recommendations based on your research. So we can explore storage, instantaneous and solar hot water systems. Also, there is the Ausgrid hot water calculator. So in doing that, to keep things consistent between students and systems analysed, we set out here the requirements for that comparison. So use the calculator to compare the running costs of different hot water services, calculate the annual cost for a household of 4 people who each shower once a day for 10 minutes using a standard shower head. They don't use the bath and use warm water for the washing machine cycle. The existing unit is electric storage installed before 1999, and the electricity tariff is continuous. Compare the energy use and cost of running this system with at least 3 other systems, including electric instantaneous, gas storage, solar with gas boost. Which system is the cheapest to run? What type of system would you choose for task 1, house? Include the reasons for your choice and add an image of the system at the end of your report. Also within that, the recommendation: identify relevant Australian standards and make note of important aspects of installation methods, initial estimated costs and ongoing costs. So that's our hot water services for building. Also, what you will be required to include in this task 1 is on-site water storage for firefighting. So you're also required to determine the requirements of dedicated water supply for firefighting purposes as per the Minister's Specification 78, with reference to the SA map viewer, the bushfire risk category and address and availability or not of mains water. Please note, this will require an address for determining this. So the proposed address for the dwelling is number 116 Finnisvale Drive, Second Valley. So it is a rural address. Please note this address is for contextual purposes only, and students are asked not to visit the site. So the site is in the property at Second Valley there. So it's just given as a rural address that has some bushfire requirements. So Minister's Specification 78, we have that available down here. So it's Minister's Specification bushfire under this title here. And what we will be looking at is, so we'll need to read through this specification. However, we have on our, on page 4, in regards to water supply. So this directly relates to our requirements within the task. We have capacity and fittings required for bushfire protection water storage facility. Now, for our level of bushfire, we can have general or medium and high. So we need to have a look to determine what the bushfire rating is for that property, and then whether it's connected to mains water or not connected to mains water. So if it's connected to mains water, then we need 2,000 litres of on-site storage. However, if it is not connected to mains water, for medium, then we'll need 5,000 litres of on-site storage. If it's in a high bushfire risk connected to mains water, we'll need 22,000 litres of water for either scenario, connected to mains water or not connected to mains water. So for this, first of all, what we need to do is we need to access the SA map viewer to find out this information, which is where we will go now. So just above that, we have placed in here a link to SA map viewer. So open that link. It's taking a little while to load. The internet's a little bit slow. Maybe it's because of the bad weather here tonight. I won't search for that address specifically. We'll search for another address just to use an example, get a bit of an idea of what we're doing there. What I'll do is I will randomly choose a property on Upper Sturt Road. So Upper Sturt Road, Upper Sturt, where we know that there are bushfire requirements for there. So I'll go number 60. Hopefully this turns us up a property, or Upper Sturt Road, Bel Air. Okay. So an area, so we're adjacent to Bel Air National Park. I think we can be, and on top of the crest of the hill, I think we could be fairly safe bet we will have a bushfire loading on this property. So once we've entered SA Map Viewer, we have several different choices of maps. One of those maps is, we can click on roads. This shows us the location of roads, but it also shows us the cadastral information, so all of the property boundaries for that particular, or the simple property boundaries for that. Beyond that, we can also choose the topographic map, and that shows us the topography of the area. So we have a relatively flat area here. We're at the crest of the hill, and then our topographic lines are fairly close together on this side of the road here, indicating a relatively steep hillside there, and then a relatively steep hillside on this side as well. But by and large, I find this map easiest to navigate using the roads map. Then we can go in and choose all of our different data sets. So there are many different data sets that we can use on this, and they're all broken down into their various different categories. One category which you will use significantly as drafters and designers is land management. So we can choose boundaries if we wish. That's going to be important. Places and addresses sometimes are important. Not so much in this context. We have a semi-residential a residential area with street numberage, etc. We can choose infrastructure and utilities, which is certainly going to be of interest to us with our task 1. Under infrastructure and utilities, we can select to have a water main shown, and then do we have any water mains coming up for Upsturt? And please note, I have not tried this on this address previously, so I can't guarantee that we do have water mains showing on this. Well, we've got it included here, but I was fairly sure we would have a water main showing on it. All right, we'll press on. I don't see any water mains showing up as yet. I'm fairly sure we won't have a reclaimed water main, so we'll leave that one with the water main ticked. Also, what we will be concerned with, and we'll shrink that one down again, possibly property and planning. So our first one that comes up here, bushfire protection areas. We'll highlight that. Yeah, look, I'm having some issues, certainly having some issues with the internet at the moment with these aspects not refreshing. I might have to do this in a separate video at another time where this is operating correctly. Typically, with Upsturt Road, I know that we will get the bushfire protection happening there straight away, but it's not actually happening on this property. I think because we have some particularly slow internet at the moment. But under normal circumstances, we can tick bushfire protection areas, and that will tell us whether we're in a low, medium, or high bushfire category. But beyond that, we can also have a look at things like land development plan and zone categories, which are highly important. It's highly important information to us as designers, not necessarily for this task, but for other tasks, or for the profession in general. Also, another very handy one is parcel cadastre. So that shows us all the ownership information and the legal aspects of that property. So once we've clicked on those, and if SA Map Viewer is working properly, okay, so we've got some stuff coming up here. We can double click on the allotment we want to look at, and then click on the button of what's here. But it's unfortunately we're not getting the results coming up. So I might have to do this video sometime soon when we've actually got the SA Map Viewer working correctly through the internet and don't have bad weather or whatever else it is causing this to be so slow tonight. Have a show again. No, we're not having a great deal of luck with SA Map Viewer. But if you follow those steps that I just went through now, you should be able to find that information. But also have a good muck around with SA Map Viewer yourself. There's all sorts of fantastic information on here that might be of interest to you. Future urban growth areas, for example, environment and flood protection areas, energy efficiency zones, and well, that's for our climate zones. So within the National Construction Code of References, various climate zones. Shrink that one down. We've got other things, geology and soils, which can be a fantastic thing. If we do water there, do we have? Oh, we've got pools and dams. What I was actually also looking for were boreholes that might drill holes. There we go. And so we can see where there are boreholes. This is an important consideration for design of on-site wastewater systems. So there are many data sets here which you can turn on and get that information about that property. But given it's fairly temperamental at the moment, we'll move on from that. So that's the SA Map Viewer, and we'll touch on that again later. But have a crack at that exercise yourselves, using the SA Map Viewer at a MINSEN specification for bushfire. Other resources here for you, so sa.gov.au, so it's awesome plot for everything building, so that includes wind speed category map, and then the residential code. Also included in here for your understanding and your research are tolerances and standards. So this is a link that David has put up onto the site in regards to allowable tolerances within buildings and what we can expect and what we can tolerate for various different aspects of construction. So for example, masonry and framing, etc. So also ask you have a good look through this, and there are some fantastic details in here for the uninitiated as well. So and it gives a good in a way vicarious introduction to construction. So back to our task one. In completing our task one, we have our house drawings. So you can see the building that this task refers to. So we are to reimagine this building as a permanent structure and specify structural systems and cladding systems for this product, for this dwelling. To assist in the production of the report, I have produced the residential dwelling report pro forma, and I will go on to produce a similar pro forma for the following two subjects. But we have the residential dwelling pro forma up for now, so we can open that in time. We're struggling a little bit here with our internet tonight. So this is a pro forma which I have set out for you to be able to assist you in producing a report. By all means, modify it if you wish, but it has been set out basically in accordance with what is required in the assignment. So what I've done is I've set out headings, subheadings, and then bullet points to be addressed under each section. So for example, if I was completing this, so I've done my research using OneNote, and I've got my section there. So in regards to roof structural, and then I might have broken my OneNote down into I'll make various different choices about my roof structural options. So my first one, for example, might be timber trusses. So So roof option number one, timber trusses. Obviously, change that to a synthetic colour. I've just had some sections identified in red there for you to change. And then, aesthetic properties, for example, we start putting in our aesthetic properties for that. And then go, I won't leave you, but I'll say no particular aspects, for example, relating to timber trusses under aesthetic properties, or we go to maintenance requirements and we say timber trusses need to be protected from weather and elements. All exposed timber members should be of H3 class treated timber or have sufficient treatment on them to resist the exposure to weather and to insects and termites, etc. So we're filling out all of these sections as per our research. So I'll do that. We'll close that one up. We don't make any changes. So when you open up that pro forma report, you'll need to save that to your computer. So that gives you a guide as to how we can go about completing this report, but by all means modify that to add elements if you wish. So that's our task 1 residential dwelling. Please be aware, as I mentioned before, it is a very involved task, and it will take a great deal of work to get that one done. And please observe, or you will have to observe the due dates for that assignment being the 21st of the 9th, so 21st of September for that one. So 5 p.m. 21st of September. Now, following on from that, we have a host of resources which we'll be going through each week. We've got roof framing, timber basics, etc., and then going on into residential steel framing. Please note that these resources will be updated in a weekly fashion as well. So that's the subject in a nutshell, and the first task requirement as per the subject. Also, I suggest that this week you familiarise yourself with the contents of the page. Get cracking on getting the OneNote task done, or start creating your OneNote and compiling research for your task 1 dwelling, and then have a look at the task 1 outline and that pro forma. So thank you for watching, and I will also be creating a video relating to consultants and authorities, which is the video that leads us in, and the slides for that are under here, under the introduction topic, research and development tools, consultants and authorities. So thank you very much for viewing, and keep